Welcome! I would like to introduce Bella Mahaya Carter, our host. Bella believes in the power of writing to heal and transform lives. Her forthcoming book, Where Do You Hang Your Hammock? Freedom and Peace of Mind for Writers, will be released June 1st, 2021.
Well, welcome everybody. It's so great to see all these faces, all this love for Anna. We are here in celebration and joy. I just want to take a moment to let you know how I'm connected to Anna. Several years, I guess about 9 years ago, I was an artist in residence at Scripps College, part of the Claremont colleges, and there was a really wonderful student who appeared in one of my workshops. It was a creative writing and movement workshop, and her name was Bella Penenberg. And she was fabulous. And she later took another workshop that I offered in Los Angeles. And I remember she told me, my mom's writing a book. And I have to admit at the time, I was like, well, isn't everybody? I mean, I didn't say that, but I really had no idea how special Anna was. I just kind of thought, okay. And then Anna reached out to me and asked me about my experience with She Writes Press, and she asked if I had, thought that was a good way to go. And I had a wonderful experience with She Writes Press, and so Anna decided to publish with She Writes Press. But the really astonishing thing was when I got her advanced reader copy and read her book, because then I realized, oh my goodness, this woman is a healing goddess. It was incredible. I love this book so much, and so I'm really delighted to be here with all of you and to celebrate this incredible accomplishment. So let me just tell you how this is going to work. We're going to start with Anna's book trailer, which is incredible. And then after the book trailer, I'm going to interview Anna. I'm going to ask her a few questions. And as part of that process, she'll read a couple of short excerpts. And then she has this wonderful connection exercise that she will lead us in. And I think that's going to be really fun. And then you, the audience, will have a chance to ask her some of your questions. And we'll end the presentation with another beautiful short video. And you can feel free, that's the official end of the event after that video. And so you can feel free to leave after the video. But if you want to stay on and, revel with Anna, you can do that too. I'll leave that up to you. But that will be the official end of the program. So Nick, why don't you go ahead and show us this amazing, wait, before you show us the trailer, I'm just going to give you a one-sentence blurb about what this book is about in case some of you don't know. Full of adventure, humor, and blind faith, Dancing in the Narrows is an inspiring story of self-discovery as a single mother fights to save the life of her child. Okay, let's see this trailer.
Dana always had a smile on her face, and she was ready to dance through the entire house. At 16, she spiraled into illness. The doctors did not know what she had. She was in pain every moment. Dana was eventually diagnosed with Lyme disease. She would hallucinate from her sleep medicines, and then she would swell up from the IV antibiotics. And after 4 years, and who knows how many doctors, we lost faith in Western medicine. There were periods when Dana was on the couch, but she was always creative. When her hands got too weak to hold a paintbrush, she began to sing. Dana tried alternative therapies whenever possible. We even smuggled a medical device over the border. Despite the hardships, we had a bond that was unlike most mothers and daughters, and we shared laughter and tears and lots of adventure. I wrote this book to inspire hope. It's not a how-to book. It's my story of self-discovery and an unconventional odyssey to save my spirit and my daughter's life.
Yeah, it's very emotional and
some pictures in there are definitely the worst of times. And so, that's one reason I wrote the book, was to share how do you go through something like this, and something in your life that really takes a lot. And so thank you for watching the trailer in small pieces.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so most of you know Anna and you're connected to her in some way or another, but you may not know she's done so much, so I'm just going to take a moment and read her bio. Anna Penenberg works with individuals and families affected by trauma. A healer by nature and training, her approach integrates neurobiology, psychotherapy, and wisdom traditions into personal pathways of repatterning. Anna holds a BA in psychology, an MA in dance therapy from UCLA, and certifications in marriage and family therapy, body-mind centering, infant development movement, and Kundalini yoga and meditation. She is the mother of 2 adult daughters and lives in Topanga, California. Dancing in the Narrows is her first book. Okay, so I'm going to start by asking Anna a question. And that question is, what doesn't the book trailer show that you'd like to discuss or share?
Yeah, I think it's not really showing a lot of the moments in relationship that happened between my daughter and I, which were also very joyous and confusing, and lots of times when we had, there's a lot of moments with my daughter and myself that were quite joyous, and under the circumstances, very inventive. And we took a long road trip at one point, and just got out of the house and went to see the world, even though we couldn't do much else, with the illness taking a lot of our time and efforts. And of course, we were headed towards a clinic that we wanted to get to. So lots of, really growthful times. And that's what I would like to add to that.
Great. So in what way, Anna, do you think that this book is relevant to this global pandemic that we find ourselves in? Why is this something that we should read now?
Interestingly, we were having an experience of being at home and sort of quarantined because Dana was so ill and things were so bothersome. And I think the parallel to how all of us are having to tangle with what does it mean to be learning about a virus and scared of a virus and doing all the right things and being mindful of others. And it's quite an interesting parallel to my story.
Yeah, I mean, when I read it, I was just so struck by the difficulty of the situation. And yet somehow you were so hopeful and you kept going. I mean, your strength and resilience, and your daughter's strength and resilience. I will say, I mean, I called you a healing goddess, and I think your daughter is a healing goddess too. That was pretty amazing, pretty inspiring to see that kind of resilience and strength and hope and persistence. That it was really inspiring. And so I feel like this is a perfect time to read your book, because we need that kind of inspiration. It's just beautiful. How did you take care of yourself during that time? Like, what would you say about self-care during that challenging time?
Well, I did a variety of things. I did a lot of yoga, meditation, being in the garden. I mostly had to be mindful of Dana 24/7, so I wasn't really going anywhere else except to the market, where I would go to the market when a particular chair massage person was there, so I could have a nice massage. I could eat dinner that was prepared from the prepared foods at the market and get groceries, and that was my self-care. I took baths, and at one point, I would say maybe once a year, I would take a hiking trip for a week and just get someone to help me with Dana. So I'd like to read a story called The Narrows, a little excerpt of that. I was craving relief from the emotional stress I lived with every day. I needed a strenuous physical challenge to deliver me back to myself. Online, I found a hiking group planning to trek the Slot Canyon in Zion National Park. The Narrows is a 16-mile stretch of the Virgin River where 2,000-foot-high canyon walls get closer and closer to each other as you walk, wade, and swim into the narrow section of the canyon. I was mesmerized by the internet photos of hikers wading through a river into the steep Slot Canyon. The vibrant reflection of sunlit water onto carved canyon walls went straight into me, right off the screen. I had to go there. I left for a week as my neighbor took over Dana's care and made it to Zion, where I joined a group of 4 hikers going into the Narrows. At the water's edge, a shock of cold blasted through my body as I stepped into the water. I stopped to bundle up, zipping myself into the cocoon of my fleece jacket. The strong current pulled on my legs, forcing me to use my hiking poles as extra limbs to secure my tenuous balance while I dragged each leg through the current. I felt the powerful meshing of wills, the river's and mine. Before I left home, a rash had appeared on Dana's knee, indicating the probability of rampant infection. I wouldn't admit to myself that she wasn't getting better. I couldn't endure the hopelessness. I was in the river with sand and mud up to my thighs, wrestling it all out. I moved ahead with the group into the narrowing canyon, witnessing the warm sunlight as it reflected off the upper walls of rust and gold stone. The group stopped at a place where our leader said we had to turn back in order to make it out before dark. No, I couldn't go back. May I take a few moments alone? I asked our leader. She answered, you have 10 minutes before we head back. Please be careful. The hard-packed sandbar across from this narrow point in the river went on for some yards into the canyon, zigzagging away from my group. The wind attacked my face, the current pulled on my legs, and the rocks and boulders tipped me off balance. I began to wake up. These are my legs. This is my life. And I am still here.
It's beautiful, Anna. I just love that passage. I wonder if if there's anything else you'd like to say about nature and maybe the way it has served to be a healing force in your life.
Well, I always made sure there was something in our lives that brought us into nature and helped us heal as we were trying to revive our lives and deal with Lyme disease. And at one point I built a raised bed garden so Dana would make it outside and just be with her beloved plants and be in the realm of things growing. And I would even, on days when she couldn't go out, I would bring in a flower of her favorite kind and just put it across from her in the living room. And at one point, I drove her over to a local farm where they had, we were getting goat milk from them. And they said I could bring her over and maybe she could help. And that was just so joyous for her. She loved the baby goats, and it was just a very healing experience. So this connection runs really deep in our family. we love to hike and be among growing things that are beautiful and be reminded.
That's great. What may I ask? What was her favorite flower at that time, or one of them?
Well, we actually got this plant, this beautiful rose called Double Delight, and we had it in a pot, and that beautiful plant made one rose because it didn't really like the panga, but that one rose was very beautiful.
Aw, that's great. That's great. Anna, what do you hope that your readers will get from this book?
Well, I definitely hope that they'll have an incredible journey with us and um, feel what it's like to be hopeful against lots of odds, and that the human spirit is really capable of a lot. And I think I personally felt like I was being stretched every moment into maybe who I am now. And that you can't imagine what you're capable of until you have an adventure in life like this. And everyone has one. This is things, like today in the trailer, it didn't play smoothly. And that's life as we embrace it.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. I personally just got so much inspiration, and also a sense that sometimes I feel like I have to work so hard to make things right. And there was something about, I don't know, there was something kind of divine about the way you listened and the way you trusted the physical body to point you in the direction of healing. The way you trusted that, I thought was so inspiring, really beautiful.
And, I witnessed Dana having a long learning curve with her body when things hurt and it was impossible, it felt, and it was hard to think. And she began to learn more about herself in a way that I think is fairly untypical of teenagers. And I trusted her knowing and her responses to me. There's been times when people have asked us, well, why didn't I just go with what the doctors were saying and give her the psychological medications? And I just felt like she and I knew this wasn't her. Something was happening, and we were going to find out what and how to unwind it. So I trusted her soul and spirit in this journey.
That was also really remarkable, the way you parented her. How do you parent somebody who's facing these kinds of challenges and yet also support her development as a young adult?
Well, we were practically duking it out for a while. Dana was pretty angry, and 16-year-olds don't want their whole, social life taken away and not to have any ability to go do all the things that, healthy kids at 16 are doing. And she's pretty mad. And we had no idea. You think your child's going to maybe have mono for 2 months. That seems like an eternity. So when we embarked on this, it was like, she'll get over it. Well, okay, another week, she'll be over it. And of course, we were going to a lot of doctors. And they were not really finding anything in the blood work, except maybe some Epstein-Barr, and maybe it's a mono-like experience. Maybe it's a little mold. And so we just had no idea. And it wasn't really until a year and a half later that we found out it was Lyme disease. So at some point, she and I really kind of had a moment, it's in my book, where I get pretty mad because I've just worn out and she's mean and she's wearing dark clothes and listening to Crash and punk rockers. So it was hard. But after that, we just somehow realized that we have to do this together. And when that happened, I really felt like we were learning something. We were having a journey that was going to teach us. And it definitely did. So
I know you have an excerpt that you want to read, but I want to just ask you, what did you learn?
What did I learn about parenting?
What did you said you saw that there was something to learn.
Oh, I think I recognized that she and I were in training to learn about healing, honestly.
Yeah.
And that Western medicine might not have the answers or much of the answers to this or any at all. And that I was curious about the immune system. I was curious about how does a 16-year-old, healthy person, although we think she probably got bit a lot earlier than that and was probably carrying it for a while, but, reasonably healthy 16-year-old who was dancing 20 hours a week. And, how does this happen? What happens to the immune system? How do you realign things? And, in the raising of yourself or children, there's always an emotional trajectory and a developmental trajectory about how you become yourself. And so that I took that very seriously, as I always had with my children, that their development was to be honored and respected and supported. And so my goal for her was to continue to become her. And even though this was all happening too, which was a teacher, she is who she is, but she's also now quite schooled in healing and is quite a good practitioner herself. So this is one of my most difficult parenting decisions that I can think of, because I think you'll see what it involves. But I think parents make these decisions under less critical circumstances all the time. And so this is called Developmental Independence Against All Odds. An hour later, Dana found me in the kitchen systematically chopping vegetables. I'd learned to keep my emotional responses on an even keel, because any stress would set off a physical reaction in Dana's system. Rashes broke out and swelling increased. I couldn't bear to be the cause of any further discomfort. It was like I was wearing an internal girdle cinching my gut together so emotions wouldn't escape through my mouth. Dana couldn't even tolerate my rare, brief moments of joy, laughing, dancing, or singing. Her nervous system was a live wire. Mom, I'm going to stay with Andrew. He's gotten worse. Oh my God, she's really going to do this. I felt I might actually split in two in front of her. Part of me would never feel right letting her do this, and part of me wanted her to take charge, to become independent. I thought this might be a good opportunity for her to take responsibility for herself, but it also felt like she'd be walking a tightrope with no safety net. Would you like me to go with you? No, I want to go by myself. I'll go for some sauna treatments while I'm there. Oh, okay. Inside, I was spinning. I didn't know how to think about this. She was taking responsibility for her treatments, definitely a good thing, but maybe also a bribe. I'm going to pack. Can you get the black suitcase for me? Yes, I said, not wanting to cause a scene. I desperately wanted her to be capable of driving out of town to visit a friend like a normal 20-year-old, but I knew she was suffering from many symptoms that could make driving dangerous. I needed a break, But at the same time, I was terrified. An image ran through my mind. Dana behind the wheel, pushing 80 miles per hour on the freeway for 4.5 hours, her head pounding, exhausted. Would she be capable of making good decisions? Maybe Andrew was near death. I couldn't know what might happen or control it. In my mind, I severed the sinewy umbilical cord still connecting us. I got the suitcase.
So incredible, Anna. I mean, the kind of strength that takes as a parent to just let go in that way is just remarkable. And I think really, I think that's what's being asked of us now in many ways, is to let go of so much, which is another reason why I think this book is just so relevant for our time. I mean, I know you had no way of predicting this, but I really think that it will be a great comfort to people to read right now. It's just wonderful. I have one more question before we go to the connection exercise, and that is, how did your family respond to all this?
Well, there was a variety of very long-standing responses. My sisters were very supportive. Her sister Kayla was growing up and going to college for the first time and leaving home, and that was really hard. To see her sister so sick and with no real answer to how she was going to get better. And so I think it was, the siblings in the family take quite a bit. And she kind of lost hanging out with her sister. And so because of the symptoms and the difficulty with environmental sound and light and also just the wearing clothing sometimes got very difficult, just the sensation on her skin. So she had a lot to deal with, and it was really uncomfortable to have people come over. And so we were very isolated. And my family probably wanted to help me, but it was really unclear how. And so we were pretty isolated, and that's
what they
happened.
think about. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
What did they think about some of the alternative therapies that you were trying?
Oh, that might have been a little upsetting and confusing. I do remember hanging up on my mother one time because I was just like, well, if you have an alternative, I'll try it, And, we were doing things that were pretty hard for her to understand. It wasn't, antibiotics and, wait to get better. We were doing all kinds of acupuncture and, lots of alternative medicines and diets and sleep regimens and just lots of things that you will find in the book, even eating a raw diet with bison heart. I have to confess that I did not do that, but Dana did. And there was a whole regimen that was going to rebuild her muscle tissue and, revive her system. And I have to say, it did help. But it was out there.
I think people don't realize how once modern medicine can't help you or doesn't, once you're not finding healing with modern medicine, you're kind of on your own, and you realize, oh wow, I have to heal myself, or I have to heal, in this case, I have to heal my daughter, or Dana saying, wow, I got to heal we got to do this, we got to figure this out. It takes so much courage because other people don't understand. They don't see it. They're like, well, why aren't you just doing the thing with the doctors? But what I really got out of your book was that there were alternative therapies, and some of them were very helpful. Mm-hmm. And you guys took responsibility for healing in a way that was just really remarkable, really remarkable.
I have a story about one that was so fun and really out of the box. And, you know, back then marijuana was not legal. So Dana had seen this incredible video of this woman. Her husband was a physician, and he had kind of devised this protocol with juicing marijuana leaves and or cannabis, however you like to think about it. And you needed a lot of leaves to make 2 ounces of juice. Just think about wheatgrass juice. So it's like that. Leaves do not have a lot of juice. So here I am, and I realize, well, I guess we're all going to have to get medical marijuana licenses so we can at least get enough, maybe plants and plant them or something. And so my daughter Kayla was staying with us back from college, and I like wake her up and, Kayla, come on, we got to get marijuana licenses, you know, medical marijuana licenses. And she's like, what? You know, what, you want me to smoke marijuana? So anyway, that was quite an adventure, and we stuck with it. It filled the house with this pungent smell, let me tell you. So I'm not recommending it. And it also did not do the job of taking down the inflammation that we had hoped. So that was a fascinating experiment.
Great. So that's so interesting. It's wonderful. So let's move on to the connection exercise. Anna, why don't you lead this exercise? I think it's kind of cool.
So I had this idea that we would all go on the gallery view. Let's see if I can do it. Yeah, there's everybody. And hi, Mom. Wow, I didn't see you there. So I just thought we would, if you can click on gallery view, you'll see everybody. And if we do this, we can connect with our Zoom friends who are all here together to listen to this wonderful story. And that's so cool. Wow. How does that feel? So you thought you couldn't connect on Zoom, but there are ways for us movement people. And there's 2 people in that screen. Let's maybe lift one arm. Oh, hi, everybody. And the other arm. Oh my gosh, this is fun. I really had no idea what this would look like. And let's just bring our hands to our heart. And thank you for participating in this wonderful little exercise of connection. And I'm really hoping that my story will do that, connect people to their heart and to each other, and help us deal with some things that we already are dealing with. So
Anna,
yeah.
since we are holding our hearts right now, and since we do had that little moment of connection, I think that you said there were some people that you wanted to thank.
Yes, I pretty much want to thank everybody for being here. All of you I pretty much know and love. Thank you for your healing, for your friendship, for all the angels that were with us on this ride, this wild ride we went on. And Jeffrey, thank you for copy editing my beautiful story so well. And yeah, just old friends and wonderful. It's, you know, I can't tell you what it's like to wake up in the morning and know that you're having this wild celebration that's kind of like a birthday or a graduation, and you can't really figure it out, but it's like you've come through something, and there is a celebration here. Although you might have to write a book to get this kind. You know, and Phil, I want to thank you too so much, because Phil read so many versions of my book before this one. And Stephanie, who's been there for the whole humongous learning curve of promoting your book. And so wonderful publicist. And yeah, my moon circle friends and my childhood friends, Claudia and Mari, from graduate school, and it's just wonderful. Julia, and from Body Mind Centering School back east. And yeah, and my Topanga writing group is here. It's a small group of 3, but we are hardy.
That's wonderful. Before we go on to the audience questions, I just want to say that, so you've probably all seen Anna's book. This is her book. And she really, really, it would be so great if each and every one of you could purchase at least one copy, but maybe more. Think about it like this. You're in, everybody is like kind of, staying at home. And this book will make such a great gift for a birthday, for a friendship, for the holidays. And you could buy several of these books now and just like have them, put them away. And the cool thing is that Anna, she had these beautiful book plates designed, and they happened to fit perfectly into, she had signed my book, but if you can see, they fit perfectly here so that it's almost like being at a live event where the author can send you a personalized, everybody enrolled, everybody who is registered for this event will get one of these personalized plates. If you say, I bought your book and I'd love it personal. And in fact, she'll create several of them for you. So, and if you don't know who you want to give the book to, you can, tell her what you want her to say, and she'll write that, and she'll just say, peace and love or whatever, stay healthy or whatever, and she'll sign it. So I think that's really beautiful. And we all can support Anna by buying multiple copies of her book. And I think it's a beautiful gift. So I just wanted to say that before we go on. And now it's time to open up the floor to all of you and to your questions. So Nick, do you want to kind of, what's the best way to do this, Nick?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple options. I think we could definitely take some questions through the chat box if you want to type it in. Or if you want to raise a virtual hand or a real hand, I'll look through the gallery to see if anybody is raising their hand. So we're open for some questions whenever anybody's ready.
I see Stephanie, yeah.
How long did it take you to write your book, Anna?
Well, that is a hard question to answer because I wrote a lot in my journal during many of the years Dana was ill, and probably had this idea. I thought it was going to be a documentary because I thought, wow, nobody should live like this. We should film this so people know what we're doing. And then I didn't have any skills for that, so that didn't happen. And then I started writing and getting more serious about it. So that was in like 2008. And then when I met Suzanne, I had like 100,000 words, and we had to organize them.
Yeah. Do you think it would have gone quicker if you'd been a filmmaker, or longer?
Wow, I don't know. Would have been some interesting footage, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm seeing an interesting question here from Beth Good. I think this is a great question. From what book dealer can we get the book if not from Amazon?
You can go to any of your indie bookstores and order my book, and any of your local stores. Many of them are either mailing you a book, or you can come pick it up and curbside if they're not open. So that's a wonderful thing to do to support our indie bookstores so they will stay alive in these times.
Michelle Azar says, I think it would make a great movie. I love that. I agree with you, Michelle.
Yes,
Yeah.
My daughter Kayla would like to star as Dana. She told me that. She did a little acting, but now she's a graphic designer who designed the book plates.
Oh, Beth, that's great. Beth says, now you get to write a screenplay. I like this person, Beth. Beth, this is great. I love that you're supporting indie bookstores, and I love that you're saying that. That's great.
I think, Mara, you had a question? Oh, you have to unmute yourself.
Hi, Anna.
Hi.
Hi. I just want to tell you how moved I was in your description of walking through the Narrows, and how much I feel your heart in this. I had a question. I haven't read the book, of course, but at what point did you feel that this was behind you? I had a sense that this life and death struggle was, in a way, you were not going to let Dana go. You were right with her, and the bond is there, and you were. She was not going to be doing this alone. Was there a point at which you felt it was mostly behind you, that the healing was happening, that and did you believe it? I mean, were you able to recognize that when it was getting better, and I suppose in my own experience, I felt like I would still be in the fight mode, hard to let that go and welcome other aspects of life in. So just wondering
So
about.
I feel like it's a three-part question. So I think what happened was I always wanted to get to the place where I could hand it to Dana and it would be her journey with it. And at one point I just felt like she was better enough and her head was clearer and she could be more responsible for letting me know which direction to go that we were going to pursue. And I just trusted her. And so that was a big turning point. And I began to follow her. And we still had a lot of ups and downs. So it was still kind of risky business. I wouldn't say it was all uphill. But I just, people ask me this, and I think it's almost spirit guided. I definitely trusted that we were going to make it through somehow. Maybe not when she was on IV antibiotics and was breathing, with a machine, but after that, even though she went up and down, I still knew that we were going to find our way out. And Dana is quite well versed in energetic medicine as a result. Thanks for the question.
That's a great question. I'm seeing a couple of really great questions in the chat box. Kimberly, God, I'm so embarrassed. I'm not sure how to pronounce your last name. I don't know if it's Robeson or Robeson. I'm so sorry, Kimberly. This is someone I know personally. But she asked a great question. She says, how does Dana feel about reading her story? And maybe you can't answer that for Dana, I don't know, but what's your perception about that, Anna?
Do you want to answer, Dana? Or no? How does she feel about my reading?
About reading. The question says, how does Dana feel about reading about her story? Like, what's it like for her to read this story?
Oh, well, lately she's really gotten clear that this is, how your life is and it moves on. This is not her story now. This is not her life now. This is not her fight now. It has yielded quite a lot for her in helping others. And, it's triggering. Dana and I can hardly get through the trailer ourselves.
Yeah, the other piece that I wonder about in sort of as a follow-up to that question is this is your story in a way, because you're the narrator and this is your experience. And so, it's as much this book is really your story. This is, it definitely references Dana's story, but it's also your story.
Yes, and I do want to bring out that I added in the whole course of structuring this story, I added a lot about my own development and the years that I trained in movement and worked in psych hospitals. And it was like, what was I becoming? And then how could I conceive of what was happening to my daughter later on? And I took those tools with me. And so it is really, I didn't Hollywood end my story. There was no one moment that Dana got the, you're cured label. And so it ends with her going off to college, but there were years after that. But then you see what happens to me, because I had to find out what happened to me and how I was going to right myself and my life and, reinvent everything. And I think it calls to your question, Mari, about the being in fight and flight. How do you move out of that survival state? And I really feel the parallels right now. I feel like people have minor and macro doses of feeling in survival with this pandemic, and loss of businesses and all kinds of reasons why it's very traumatic in their life, and how to stay centered and move forward and keep creating.
Yeah, we're coming to the top of the hour, and I want to be mindful of the time. So maybe there's just one more question that you could just answer. Jed Wolf is asking, what was your writing process like?
Well, when you get to the chapter about the cabin, I was in an altered universe, because it's a backstory in the 1970s. And I had weeks where I just was listening to the music of the 70s and reliving stuff. And I kind of had to go all the way there. And I think that's typical of my writing. I have to immerse myself in those feelings to write it.
Anna, before we show the closing video, and I'm so hoping that it's all going to run smoothly because it's so beautiful. It's short, but it's so beautiful. So I'm got my fingers crossed on that. Is there anything else that you'd like to say as we close out the program?
Well, I just am so grateful that you all came and that it's an important story for our time. I hope it will be helpful to everyone in the way of inspiration during challenge, and for parenting and people who have chronic illness, and what they might derive from it that's soothing to them. So this is really a big graduation for me and my book baby. It's going to grow up now and be its own thing, thankfully.
I'm sorry, Anna, but I do see in the chat box that Cheryl Plannert is asking. She says she has a question that she'd like to ask Anna. So can we just
Sure.
Can we just take one more question? Cheryl, maybe you can unmute yourself, or Nick, you can unmute Cheryl.
I'm here. Hi, Anna.
Hi.
Anna and I go way back, way back. I have a pressing question, and that is, because I work in the alternative realm too, and because I'm always faced with tremendous amount of fear about stepping out in that realm. And I just realize in my heart of hearts how much you must have been faced with that almost on a daily basis, of making choices that are not common, but that are very, you say spiritually connected, which may be, but still, you walk on this planet, and still it takes a tremendous amount of courage to make those choices when 99.9% of the planet are going with the doctoring route, because that's all that is sanctioned. Could you say something about how you sustained that degree of courage for so long? That must have been exhausting.
Yeah, that's a great question. How long was it, Anna? And then that's a wonderful question.
It was all told, I think, 12 years to get through. Well, I think there's two places in me that are not that bendable, and one of them is being a mother, and it's fierce. You know, my daughter was not going to live this way. And the other one was that I believe so much in the body that it is a wellness container. It wants to be well. And if you assist it, support it, listen to it, let it process what it needs to, it will take you there. And I was determined to live that way. And I think that is what I held every day.
Thank you.
Beautiful. That's just beautiful. All right, well, thank you all for coming. Let's take a look at the closing video, and then if you want to stay behind and be informal, we can do that. And if you want to go, thank you so much for being here. And please buy Anna's book, and also review it on Amazon. That's important.
Congratulations, Anna. Congratulations, Anna.
Good job, Anna.
Great job,
You
Anna.
did it. You did it. You
Well
did
done.
it.